John, often called the beloved, Jesus is one of Jesus' closest friends and disciples in his inner circle. Stayed with Jesus to the end, was charged with taking care of Jesus' mother as he passed away. And he says, I saw it, I saw it, I saw it. And he writes these books. And John was persecuted as well. History records John being boiled alive and surviving somehow. And so they couldn't kill John. They tried to kill him in many different ways, history records, and they couldn't do it. So then they just put him on an island called Patmos. They're just like, get out of here, dude. Like, we can't kill you. And so they sent him out to an island, and that's where he wrote many of his books. And so John is out there saying, listen, I've seen this happen. Now, I know what you may be thinking, and I know this is what I thought, because I became a Christian later in life. And I think when we read the Bible, you're listening to these stories, and John and Peter and Luke and all these guys, and we're thinking, man, these guys just cooked this deal up. They just fixed all this thing, together. But here's just an interesting observation. Oftentimes, I think skeptics of Jesus always assume nefarious and even sinister motives for the followers of Jesus, as if they're all getting together to cook something up. I mean, it's not like they're getting together to get you to rob a bank, okay? They're like, oh, let's get together and huddle, and man, let's get people to love their neighbor better. Oh my, come on, let's lie about getting people to love their neighbor as their self and be generous. Let's get them to lie. What? They're not trying to get anyone to do anything sinister here. They're trying to get people to believe a root system that they all saw rooted in historical truth because they believe it's the true path to life. They're not trying to get them to do anything terrible here. But oftentimes we just assume, based on the fact that these are people, that they've done something wrong. We want to say, well, because they're Middle Eastern, or because they're men, or because they're young, or because they love Jesus, there must be some sort of ulterior, sinister motive in their heart. We give the benefit of the doubt to all sorts of other people in that regard. We don't assume nefarious motives or horrible motives on other people in our lives, even though inherently we probably should be careful in doing so. I mean, has anyone here ever flown on a plane? Anyone here have flown on a plane? Anybody? A lot of people. Has anyone slept on a plane? Just show of hands. Now, you guys know the pilot? You don't know the pilot? So you got on a plane, 35,000 feet in the air, and you flew over an ocean in a metal tube that was invented like 80 years ago, and that's not that long ago, and you flew on it for how long? And you slept, and you didn't even meet the guy that's flying the plane. That's ridiculous. And you go, well, I mean, who's to say this guy really knows what he's talking about? I mean, maybe we should interview him. Maybe I need to meet his mother and his grandmother. I need to see evidences of ID. I need to meet his manager and his boss before I can ever credibly believe he's a pilot. No, you just get on the plane and fall asleep. So we look at the Bible and say, well, the Bible's different because it's life and death, and, this is eternity we're talking about, and if I believe it, it's a waste of my life. So is getting in a car or a plane. You get in a car and a plane, you could die, and yet you still do it. Now, but for John and Luke and Peter, they get together, and they're sitting in a circle, and they're asking people, hey, let's get together, let's lie, let's get people to love their neighbors, be generous, and to live and believe in a God who promises eternal joy. We'll play the greatest trick of the world's ever pulled. What monsters. What horrible monsters. And this is what Dr. Tim Keller says about this. He says, we should, therefore, stop demanding that belief in God meet a standard of universally acknowledged proof when we don't apply that to any other commitments on which we base our lives.